Another appealing thing is that you can locate your brand situation in that loop, okay? So Sony was one of the examples of the previous presentation, which clearly has quality issues. It's not the leader that it used to be, and you could see the writing on the wall. Sony effectively stopped innovating about 20 years ago, and Akira Morita, the chairman of Sony, said that regrettably, one of the reasons why Sony stopped doing this is because they stopped observing the customers, how they experience the products. Okay, but now that you know that, and you know that from social conversations, you know where you are in the loop and what you have to fix. BP has all sorts of problems, obviously, reputation included, but the biggest problem is that basically they turn negative on the consumer. They deceive the consumer. Gap has a different problem in the sense that they could not discover their meaning, but hopefully they're finding it, and they're at this part of the loop. Toyota is in the reputation territory, number one because it had a great reputation before, had a big goodwill accumulated, but now it's taking its toll with two crises, right? One is the accelerated crisis, the other is the external crisis, the Japan crisis, which delays parts and things like that, and then, you know, the Toyota market share has fallen, and the consistency is not there as well. And then you have the Domino's Pizza example, which is a brand acting upon the feedback, looking at its reputation to go down, and then trying to fix things. But the idea here is that it never stops, okay? Even if you're here in a good quality state, that doesn't mean you're going to stay there forever. Because things change, things are dynamic. So are we going to reach an equilibrium? I'm not sure. We're not going to reach an equilibrium in the sense that we're going to think that, you know, this is the brand, we achieve that status, and that's it. No. We're going to reach an equilibrium in the sense that this is the cycle we have to go through, and we have to monitor all these conversations, which are going to give us an idea of where we are in the cycle to keep coming up with the right brand meaning for the consumer. Okay, so it is about continuous monitoring. So the thing that changed more than anything else is that the loop has gotten bigger and it really has to close now. Because it's about the dynamic feedback that comes down from the customer as much as it comes from the brand. We've already talked about these things, so just a couple of notes here that network reputation and co-creation, which I consider the Domino's Pizza example, are things that they take time. So surprisingly enough, in this day and age of very fast communications and immediate feedback, online, it still may take time to achieve an effect through social conversations, because reputation and satisfaction are things that you need time in order to fix. Okay, so that was the main course. These are the ideas of how we should change our thinking about how communications work. Now I'm going to go for a couple of side dishes. We talked about how communications work very quickly. I want to talk a little bit about what communications, or what things in the communication are going to work, especially in the social conversations aspect, based on some research that has been done, some observations, and some strategies that have been applied by some leading brands. So the critical point here is that, what has changed, what's brought in the feedback of the conversations. Okay, no question about that. So the dilemma for the brand is, how do I not just monitor the conversations, how do I participate in the conversation? Am I a silent participant, or am I a vocal participant? Do I barge into the conversation, or do I just listen? And in order to figure that out, you have to go back and ask why people have, what are the reasons that people go actually to social media? Okay? So ask yourself two comparable questions. What do consumers want when they go to the search engine? What do they want? Information, right? Very simple. So you give them information. That's one thing. It's very clear. You give them the rational benefit. What happens on the other side? What do they want when they participate in social conversations? Huh?
Shared experience.
Shared experience. Is the brand invited here? Maybe not. Maybe you're not invited. Maybe they're in there to talk themselves and not listen to you. So this is the fundamental question that you have to ask, and this is the fundamental task, is I have to match the customer goals and style with my style. If the customer expects me to listen, I have to listen. If the customer expects me to take an initiative, I have to take an initiative. And I came up with three very, very easy profiles with some examples. One of the profiles is the listener. And that's the case for Virgin Atlantic Airways. Of course, Virgin as a brand is a very particular brand, is one of the few brands, perhaps the only brand that I know that fun is its main value, and it works, right? Try to think of any other brand that works with fun as the main brand value. Not too many. So they're doing things in a little bit of a different way, and the philosophy is we're going to go out there, we're going to stop the media. All right, we're going to find out what people tell us about it, but we're never, ever going to barge. We're just going to listen. What if people say bad things about you? Well, Virgin's position is that, you know what? We're confident enough that we have the quality, at least right now, so that actually our customers, the one that like us, at least, they're going to go out and correct, and they're going to do the fact-checking for us. So the system is going to take care of itself. Right? The conversations themselves are going to reach to a point where the truth will be found, and we're not afraid of the truth. So that's the listener model, or that's the listener option. The second option is the facilitator option, and I've already talked about it. Nike Plus is one such idea where I facilitate social conversations. Why do I facilitate social conversations? Well, maybe I want to have the control. Okay, but also maybe I want to let consumers know that I care about what they talk about. All right, so by providing a forum for them, myself, and kind of like taking a back step, I'll let them know that I care about them. Or something like P&G's model, connect and develop. And if you think about 15 years ago, P&G was a straight up, everything is invented here company, and now they're saying more than 50% has to come from outside. But, again, there's got to be a process for it, right? Open innovation cannot just happen really openly. I mean, we have to have some control over it. The Pepsi refresh project, did you do the video? I would consider it as a facilitating case. All right? And the third case is a barging case, where you say, no, I'm going to take control of the conversations whenever it's needed. I'm going to say, this is wrong. I have to do the fact checking. The Obama campaign was a bit of a barging campaign in that sense, because they had people that were doing fact checking. And if something was heard in the forums or was discussed in the forums that was not right, if the Obama campaign thought so, they would intervene and we're going to correct the facts. All right? Now, if you think about it in terms of think and trust media, the listen and the barge is more on the trust media side. The facilitating is more on the think media side, where there's more options for co-creation, thinking, and so forth. Okay? Questions here? All right. This is interesting. Another question is, we said what works. These three options can work, depending on the situation. The other what is, what do people say? What is the content of the conversations? And as I said, surprisingly, the content of the conversation is positive. Especially if you go to online reviews, there have been a couple of studies from MIT and Yale. Dina Mason wrote an article in the Journal of Marketing Research where they said reviews are overwhelmingly positive, and the positive reviews are more critical, or rather more influential in terms of sales than the negative reviews. Why do you think this happens? And online word of mouth, much more positive than offline word of mouth. Why does this happen? Yeah.
Because it's in America.
But it's not.
No, in Poland it's mostly negative.
Okay, all right.
Positive response.
So Polish people are more negative. That's yeah.
It's
Okay.
natural.
Yeah.
Yes.
They don't like life. Okay. All right. Yeah.
If you publish a negative, you are saying that you're a fool because you bought that product and you don't want to look like a fool.
Very good point. Public embarrassment could be one of the issues. Of course, there's anonymity, but I mean, we know that there's not complete anonymity in the web. So you don't want to look like a fool. You don't want to, disclose facts that, you've been cheated, you've been deceived, and so forth. What else? What else are you afraid of? Lawsuits? Because you can say something that is claimed that it's true, but it may not be true, so the brand can come back conceivably and sue you for that. And the other thing is that there's a pressure from brands, right? You go to a hotel nowadays, you get about, 2 or 3 emails after you visit, like go and write a review, go and write a review. And, sometimes, you may delete the message, but sometimes you may feel, okay, well, I had a good stay, so let me go and write a review. Now, the even more surprising thing is that even negative criticism can actually be positive. All right? One way that can turn to positive is we change the product based on negative criticism. But what are some other reasons why negative criticism can actually be eventually positive for the brand? There's some of them there, gets people talking, okay? There's network effects. What else? It has to do with the micro-targeting thing that I put in there, but it's kind of cryptic.
Reframe some exceptions.
Huh?
Reframe negative exceptions.
Okay, that's interesting. How? Or what do you mean by that? This is a very important point.
By taking what they say
Yeah.
and addressing with positive constructive feedback.
Okay, as a brand.
Yeah.
But as another customer, how can you reframe it? Because it could be a reframing from another customer's viewpoint. Maybe that customer that wrote the review, the negative review, actually is not the right profile for the brand. All right? And I go there, I look at the review, I read because that's the other point. People do read reviews. Okay? That's another finding. So I read the review and I figure out that this guy is not in the target market of the brand. And I can sort of like disassociate with this guy, and I can make this negative feedback become positive for me. Okay? Let me give you an example. I went to a very nice hotel, Kimber Modern in Austin, and it's not like a Texas kind of place if you think about it. You've been to Austin, it's a different kind of city, and Kimber Modern is a very modern hotel. And Mr. Speedy Wheeler here kind of like ditches the hotel. If you don't want to see the innkeeper or owner of B&B where you stay, the place is for you. Had a key code. Basically, the guy starts talking about interaction. There was no interaction there. And it's true that, everything is basically, you don't see anybody. The whole idea is nobody's going to bother you while you're there. There are only 6 or 7 rooms. And starts complaining about the price, blah, blah, blah. And now I'm looking at this, and I've been to this hotel, and I'm saying this is great, Like, I do interaction for a living. I don't want any more interaction when I go on vacation. So I couldn't care if I see an innkeeper or not there. And it's not an inn, it's a boutique hotel. All right, so get your facts straight. And then, of course, when you go and look at the profile, number one, Mr. Speedy Wheeler may not be as speedy, age 65 plus, okay? No offense to senior people, my dad is one of them, but I cannot completely identify with him. It may not be a modern guy for a modern hotel. So as soon as I see this, that reinforces my view. That negative review is positive for me. Because I unidentify with this person that wrote the negative review, and that helps me identify myself as part of the target market of this particular establishment. So it depends on the profile of the people that read the review. And now you have options. That you can see profiles of people. And now the negative feedback can become positive because you can unidentify or disassociate with the person who wrote the comment and two negatives make a positive. I don't like this guy, I'm not that guy's profile. That guy wrote a negative review, therefore that's positive for me. And let me go and see what the other reviews are, which most of them are positive. Okay, now let me go and check out the hotel. The gets people talking effect of the negative reviews. Okay? Yeah.
Of course, the reviews, the negative reviews are powerful because they are spontaneous. But I think the brands, the advertising has another system like client satisfaction surveys in order to identify this kind of issues.
Okay. Yeah.
Are powerful. It's not new, are part of the past, but it's something that is not totally new.
Right. What? Yeah. I mean, but not everything is new about this stuff, right? And we said that before. I mean, it's sometimes it's just reframing of what's going on. But this is something that you can not take to the bank, but definitely, I mean, this is something that you have to know, that it gives you an opportunity to micro-target, actually, customers, right? Even through negative criticism, right? By disassociating. Yeah?
I have 2 points. One, around the negative reviews. I think, for me, and I think for a lot of people, there is a confirmation effect of negative reviews. Nothing's perfect. If you've got a succession of positive reviews, I think that's bullshit. So having a kind of like a negative, and the fact that the weighting of positive to negative is kind of, that feels kind of real. So I think that's the kind of thing there. On a broader level, and it's a term that so many people use when talking about social, is the use of social conversation, and off the back of reviews, you said it gets people talking, and I think we have to be really careful about the different roles that different signifiers within social media, because there are people don't, if you are looking for a hotel, you're looking kind of your lifestyle, you're thinking about your weekend, about what kind of place you want to get to, and you're using those reviews as a really important tool to make a final decision. What you're not doing is talking. It's a very mono-directional exercise, and the fact that quite a large basket of people have broadcast their own views and has given you a kind of decision, this kind of a basket to help you make a decision is important. But there is no conversation aspect there. There is no talking there. There is a kind of like, I'm using the power of like a social platform to help make a decision. There are other parts of the social scope which genuinely are about where people do talk to each other. I think there's an over-dominance of the idea that social is inherently interactive, and that conversation sits at the heart of social. And social is such a diverse landscape, and we need to use it in so many different ways in order to make it effective for brands. There is we talk about reframing. We need to start being a lot more precise about those particular words, because it isn't all about conversation, and it isn't all about talking. The fact that people are promoting their viewpoint, and we have access to that viewpoint, is critical. But it doesn't necessarily mean that, if you look at most social marketing programs, the level of actual kind of interactive, peer-to-peer interaction is minimal. And it's kind of not how it works. Most of our challenges as a scale business delivering brand effects is about finding some way actually to promote an activity and activation. Because if you go back to Forrester talking about their technographic view of like the land that we saw yesterday, the world's ugliest graph picture. Most people don't participate. Most people are the rubberneckers, the voyeurs, and there are different size groups. And we need to activate some of those people who will participate, because they create the kind of the micro world that we can mark out. Because we then have to go back to the Old Spice example at the beginning. This is why you have to make it all work together. You need to have something to promote. It is not about the end user. On the whole, most of our activities are not going to be about the end user experience. That small group of people who got fully immersed are important to us from a promotional perspective. So that's kind of it.
Okay.
That's all. My starting point from that is around using the conversation and talking. It's not actually critical in many uses that we will have to deploy to be successful in using this kind of building information.
All right. Point well taken. Two observations. I agree with you. Number one. Number two, going back to the reframing of things. Conversations don't have to be direct. They can be indirect. Communication, as we all know, because we're in the communications business, can be nonverbal as well. So in fact, by actually following different reviews or different comments, in fact, I have implicit conversations. And this is exactly what we meant, or one of the things that we meant by word of mouth and the offline word is that I see someone consuming a product or buying a new car, and that's word of mouth communication, although we may have not talked with each other.
That kind of semantic use of the word conversation, it's not, and it might be to a sophisticated group of people who are the leaders within our business to try and disperse this. That would be the commonly understood view of word of mouth or what conversation, what talking meant. So, like, that's fine if you want to use those words if we create the specific definitions that allow it to be that flexible. But that's not kind of how we work. That is when it gets deployed back into the business, the understanding of the language is possibly going to be much broader than the reality of when you understand it.
Well, the other thing that I wanted to say that was relevant to your follow-up is that, it could be a minority, but that minority is vocal, and that minority may make up of a lot of influencers in the community. And that's, again, how word-of-mouth communication works. That, you don't have to have a lot of people to start up or spark conversations. You just need a lot of people to follow them. Okay, just about wrapping it up here. And again, the thing here with the new types of media is that flow reversal, right? That we used to go to the customer. It's not that we're not targeting the customer. We're targeting the customer, but we're missing the target. And eventually we're kind of like carpet bombing and spraying and praying, right? But now you have the idea where actually you go to the media and you find out who your customers are or what the customers say about your brand. And in this case, it depends on the medium. Okay, it could be a review medium, it could be a conversation medium, and that could show you a completely different target market. So you're working your way back from the media to the target market. Everything is data mined. So in other words, you don't have a target in mind anymore. You go to the media and you get an idea about who your target is, based on the different media, based on the different feedback. All right, we always like to talk about accountability considerations. So really quickly, what I have to say there is that, and again, relevant to the previous point, a lot of people say, well, social media conversations are not for everyone. They're not for every brand. That could be true. What I will say is that it may not be enough for certain brands. Definitely that's the case of the Old Spice. You're a big brand with big reach, and what you have here, the downside of democracy is that you have a whole bunch of conversations or reviews or whatever about a whole bunch of different players. And that may not give you a big enough exposure if you target a big market. So you have to go to the top media to get your voice. So the top media is always going to be relevant for the big brands. Reach is it going to be efficient? Maybe not super efficient, but that has to be there, number one. Number two though, if you have the clients that go with the HubSpot example, the small to medium businesses, the top media may be enough, the Think and Trust media may be enough, the conversation may be enough, the blogging could be enough, and then your focus is ROI. rather than reach, because you want to do things efficiently. You have a very select target market, which can be found or can find you on the web. Okay? Finally, in terms of the delayed effect, I've already talked about is you have a much longer cycle, so those network effects can take some time to develop. Reputation can take some time to develop, so that's going to delay your effect. So don't expect immediate effect just because the feedback is immediate. And the second point that we've already discussed at length is that negative is not necessarily bad. Okay, you have all this negative feedback, but if you change your brand, then that can have a positive effect. So, think and trust media. They do generate network effects. That may take some time to kick in. The other benefit is you don't just have the repurchase reward. Okay, you can extend co-creation. You can change your brand based on that feedback, based on that dynamic loop. So, one of the main ideas here on how communications work, brands as buyers, role reversal. There are in the market for consumer sentiment. And that puts them very much like in the market and research market, and that puts them in the form where they will be found by the consumers. Consumers are stakeholders, they share the brand with the brand, especially on the emotional experiential benefits, because that's the meaning, that's what makes the brands meaningful. Soft shell versus a hardcore. You have at least 3 options on how to participate in conversations: listener, barger, or facilitator. And the communication effects, again, we get a lot more feedback mechanisms just rather than just purchasing or repurchasing the brand. And with that, I think we have almost run out of time, and I'll leave you to it. I don't know if there are any other questions or comments or points. Certainly we can pick it up during lunch or before lunch or after the meeting. I know I'm going to say the cliche that Hernan is the only person that stands between you and lunch and the end of this conference. All right? So, any comments? Okay, I'd love to chat with you after a presentation. Thank you very much.